Welcome. You've arrived exactly where you need to be. Take a moment. Let the world outside soften. This podcast is not here to teach you something new. It's here to remind you of something ancient. Today, we explore a quiet truth. The mind does not suffer from what enters it, but from what it refuses to question. Thoughts pass through the mind endlessly. Fear, hope, memory, doubt. They arrive like visitors at the door. But not every visitor causes suffering. Suffering begins when the mind locks the door behind a thought and calls it truth. When a thought is no longer questioned, it stops being information and becomes identity. I am not enough. This is how life always is. I must be in control to be safe. These are not facts. They are echoes. Yet the mind treats them as laws. Mystics have always known this. They did not fear thoughts. They feared attachment to them. Because an unquestioned thought becomes a silent ruler. It shapes how we see the world, how we see others, how we see ourselves. The mind doesn't break because of pain. It breaks because it insists on certainty in a universe that is fluid. Two people walk through the same storm. One becomes wiser. The other becomes wounded. The storm is not the difference. The belief is. A mind suffers not because something hurts, but because it says, "This should not be happening." Resistance is where suffering lives. Ancient teachings whisper this gently. Buddhism speaks of attachment to views. Taoism warns against rigid knowing. Sufis say the mind must bow to mystery. Even modern science agrees in its own language. The brain reacts not to reality, but to the story it tells about reality. And most stories were never questioned. They were inherited, absorbed in childhood, formed in moments of fear, reinforced by repetition. And the mind clings to them, not because they are true, but because they are familiar. To question a belief feels dangerous. If I question this pain, who am I without it? If I question this fear, what if I lose my protection? So the mind chooses certainty over freedom. But here is the quiet miracle. The moment you question a thought, you create space. And in that space, suffering loosens. Not because life becomes easy, but because the mind becomes softer. Questioning is not rebellion. It is reverence for truth. It is the willingness to say, maybe I don't know. And in not knowing, something sacred appears. Stillness, humility, peace. The mind was never meant to be a courtroom, defending beliefs. It was meant to be a temple, a place of inquiry, silence, and wonder. The mind suffers not from what enters it, but from what it refuses to question. And freedom does not arrive as an answer. It arrives as a question asked gently and left open. Thank you for listening.